But today we're going to continue our series that we've been talking through called Heart Issues. As I mentioned last week, we talked about wrath and how God's wrath is better than our wrath. And we have to be able to trust in that and believe in that and be enforced in this idea that our place is not to take revenge. In fact, Paul says to never take revenge because God's revenge is better than any revenge that we could ever enact in our world. This week, we're going to be digging into this concept of greed. We're going to talk about greed. So to start us off this morning, I'm going to read for you Luke chapter 12, verses 13 through 15. Then some called from the crowd, "Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me." Jesus replied, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as this?" Then he said, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." This is a definitive statement that we see Jesus make about greed. Now, in order for us to understand what is really going on in this passage, and why would somebody be asking Jesus to decide basically an inheritance situation, rabbis during the day, first century Jewish rabbis, would typically be in a position where if there was a dispute, a father had died, there would be a dispute about who would get what. Now, usually the brother, according to Jewish tradition, would get double portion, the older brother would get a double portion compared to just a one portion of the younger brother. But in this case, we see that these two brothers, they haven't been able to figure out what the proper apportionment is for this situation. And because of that, they've come up to Jesus, and this guy yells out, "Teacher, please tell my brother," right? Tell him. How many times have you ever wanted to go to Jesus and say, "Tell my brother, tell my father, tell my son this situation, tell him how it is to divide our father's estate with me"? And Jesus kind of questions this and say, "Why are you bringing this up?" And then immediately after asking that question, he says, "Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own." The problem here was not that they were trying to figure out how to divide the estate. The problem is that these physical things that were owned by this father, passed down to these sons, were more important to this guy than his relationship with his brother. When things get in the way of our relationship with one another, those things in themselves become idols because we think that things can deliver and give us satisfaction in a place where only God can provide for. To illustrate this is really close to home for me. My family is originally from around Trenton, New Jersey area. That's where the majority of my family is around. And I had a great relationship with my aunt. Her name's Aunt Kimmy. And there was a point in my life when I was about 7, 8 years old where my grandmother, her sister, got really, really sick and she passed away, unfortunately. And my aunt was one of my favorite family members. But she had an issue because she liked things, she liked stuff. And these things that her sister had were willed to my mom and her other daughter, my aunt, not my great aunt, but my aunt. And I saw relationship at 7 years old. I saw the relationship between my mom and my aunt completely fractured because of you remember Lennox dishes? I'm not kidding, people. Like Christmas dishes. Our whole relationship was shattered because of something that, guess what? You can't even get rid of Lennox dishes today. If you want to sell them online, you can't even get rid of them. We do this all the time. And literally, my mom and my aunt have not spoken. It's been 20 years. 23 years, for being precise. Age myself a little bit. It's been a long time that this has been a reality, that we let things get in the way of our relationship all the time, and it's only because of greed, because we think that the things are more important than the people. And I think if we went around the room, everybody would be shaking their heads agreeing, yes, relationships are more important than things. But when we live our lives, life does become measured by what we own, right? You guys buy clothes and boots for me and other things to kind of show, I have style, right? Even though y'all know I don't have style. But We talk about we put our worth in the houses that we own, the cars that we drive, the things that we have, the clothes that we wear. We are guilty of this all the time. And yet Jesus says life is not measured by what you own. And yet we only measure life by what we own, right? How many times have you looked at a homeless person on the side of the road and said, man, that guy's killing it. He's just so successful. Because we're judging people on what they have and what they own. Now, if you drive through a really swanky neighborhood and you look around and you say, oh, these guys have it all, right? They've got the pool, they've got the cars, they've got the toys, they've got the house, they've got the family, they've got it all. And yet life is not measured by what we own. Today, we're going to dig into a story that actually many of you may not be familiar with. It's kind of a weird little story in the Old Testament that we're going to be digging into today to help us understand that greed not only impacts us and our souls, but greed will impact everybody around us, whether we're affected by that greed or not, is what we're going to learn in this story. So if you want to, turn with me to Joshua. We're going to be in Joshua chapter 6 and 7. This morning, Joshua is in the Old Testament. You can open up your Bibles there, and we're going to be kind of in various places throughout this morning. But I want to give you kind of an overall view of the Old Testament leading up to this point. So we have Moses delivers his people from slavery in Egypt. The Israelites have been in Egypt, they're slaves, and Moses stands up, goes to Pharaoh, and is God's anointed person to say, let my people go. And he delivers them out of the promised land, or out of the land of slavery and towards the promised land. They see the promised land, they see how good it is, and yet they see that there's some enemies that are occupying this promised land. And they get fearful, and they doubt God's power to deliver them to the promised land. So Moses and the whole Israelite community has to suffer for 40 years of wandering around the wilderness. In fact, Moses dies before the Israelites ever see an opportunity to get into that land that was promised for him because of this situation of doubting God's power and ability to deliver them into a better place. So in Joshua 7, we're going to see that Joshua is now this new leader. He was Moses' number 2. But Joshua, he goes back up to that hill, looks into the promised land, and he thinks something different. While everybody is so afraid of how big the enemies are, how fierce that they look in their number, Joshua says, no, we can take them. And so they go in and they conquer different portions of the promised land, and they come to this town named Jericho, and that's where we're going to find the story tie in to one of the biggest acts of greed in the Old Testament. So we're going to be in Joshua chapter 6, 16 through 19. So they're at the walls of Jericho. You know, if you know the story of the walls of Jericho, they march around the walls, they blow their trumpets, and eventually the walls come crumbling down. And before this, we're seeing that God is giving them instruction on what to do exactly. So he's giving them these instructions to go around the walls of Jericho, be blowing their horns, have a certain way that they go about Jericho. And when the walls come down, he's given them now instructions on what they are to do and what they are not to do when they enter into this next portion of the promised land. Verse 16, the seventh time around, as the priests sounded the long blast on their horns, Joshua commanded the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the town. Jericho and everything in it must be completely destroyed as an offering to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and the others in her house will be spared, for she protected our spies that were sent. Verse 18, do not take any of the things set apart for destruction. So all the things, they need to be destroyed. Or you yourselves will be completely destroyed. So if they take those things that were set apart for destruction, they're going to be destroyed as well. And you will bring trouble on the camp of Israel. So if you see something that you like in this situation and you take it, you're not only bringing shame upon yourself and destruction on yourself, you're taking that on for your whole nation, your whole town. Everything made from silver, gold, bronze, or iron is sacred to the Lord and must be brought into his treasury. So there's these instructions on what to do. They're to go in, they're to basically destroy completely the town, everything in it, flatten it down, except for the things that are belonging to the Lord. They're sacred, they're holy, they belong to the Lord. It's silver, gold, bronze, and iron, right? These are all things that are still pretty valuable for us today, by the way. These are like the precious metals that need to be put apart, not just for the people of Israel, but for the Lord specifically. They're to honor him with getting these things, bringing it into his treasury. So they go and they conquer, and the very next thing that we see at the beginning of chapter 7 is we figured out that as they went in to destroy this town, somebody got a little greedy. And this guy's name is Achan. Achan. So Achan, we see, comes up in this story in chapter 7, verse 1. But Israel violated the instructions about the things set apart for the Lord. A man named Achan had stolen some of these dedicated things, so the Lord was very angry with the Israelites. Achan was the son of Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah. So right as we figure out that they go into the promised land, we see that somebody messed up. That somebody was this guy named Achan. He saw something that was valuable. We're going to learn what it is a little bit later in the story, but he sees something that is supposed to be taken back to the Lord's temple, and he takes it for himself. Now, this is going to bring consequences on the nation of Israel. There's going to be something that happens because they took this step. Verses 2 through 5. Joshua, the leader, sent some of his men from Jericho to spy out the next town, the town of Ai, east of Bethel, near Beth Aven. That when they returned, they told Joshua, "There's no need for us all to go up there. It won't take more than 2,000 or 3,000 men to attack Ai. Since there are so few of them, don't make all our people struggle to go up there." So approximately 3,000 warriors were sent, but they were soundly defeated. The men of Ai chased the Israelites from the town gates in Ai as far as the quarries, and they killed about 36 who were retreating down the slope. The Israelites were paralyzed with fear at this turn of events, and their courage melted away. So the Israelites they've taken over Jericho. They've seen God do an amazing thing and something that they didn't think that they could do themselves. They listen to God, they do what he says, and they move on to the next town. And they're so pumped up from having victory over this latest battle that they go into the next one and they overestimate themselves. Have you ever been there? Have you ever seen something succeed in your life where you were really excited about that you went into that next venture hoping for the same luck and it just didn't turn out the way you thought it would? I've been there. Oftentimes humans like to enjoy the victories and yet aren't willing to change for the next battle that is coming ahead. And this is what we see with Joshua and the whole Israelite nation, is the spies are sent to go look at Ai, and they underestimate how many men it's going to take over the city. So instead of sending 10,000, let's say, they send 3,000 to go and defeat Ai, and they are completely embarrassed. They run back. They're chased out. 36 of their men are completely killed. And now they're going to go back. Joshua and all the leaders, they're going to have a talk with God because they're disappointed with him. Because they thought that just like he showed up in Jericho, he would show up in Ai. And just like they trusted him and followed him in Jericho, he expected that all their people were doing this as well in Ai. So he has a bone to pick with God. So verse 6 through 15. Joshua and the elders of Israel tore their clothes, which is a sign of mourning, in dismay, and threw dust on their heads, and bowed their faces to the ground before the ark of the Lord until evening. Then Joshua cried out, "O sovereign Lord, why did you bring us across the Jordan River if you are going to let the Amorites kill us? If only we had been content on staying on the other side. Lord, what can I say now that Israel has fled from its enemies?" This is the leader of the nation of Israel. Basically, kind of being a little bit of a crybaby here, right? He's going before the Lord and saying, "Why, Lord, why couldn't we just be content on staying on the other side? Why did you let us down?" is what he's saying. We expected that you would be with us as we crossed over from Jericho into Ai, and it seems like you just didn't show up at all. We needed a miracle, and you weren't there, God. Why weren't you there? Verse 9. For when the Canaanites and all the other people living in the land heard about it, they will surround us and wipe our name off the face of the earth. And then what will happen to the honor of your great name?" So now he's making assumptions. He's like, we just got embarrassed in this battle. And now all the other nations that are around here that really want the promised land that we've been called to, but they inhabit already, they're going to hear about this, the embarrassment of this battle in Ai, and they're going to come and they're going to completely wipe us out. And when they wipe us out, who is going to be able to share that the Lord is the one true God? Like Joshua crawls down this rabbit hole thinking, why, oh why, would this happen to us? Verse 10. Now the Lord gives the answer to why these things happen. But the Lord said to Joshua, "Get up. Why are you lying on your face like this?" It's like, why are you grieving? Why are you in this situation? Israel has sinned and broken my covenant. They have stolen some of the things that I commanded must be set apart for me. And they have not only stolen them, but they have lied about it and hidden the things among their own belongings. This is why the Israelites are running from their enemies in defeat. For now Israel itself has been set apart for destruction. I will not remain with you any longer unless you destroy the things among you that were set apart for destruction. Verse 13, "Get up, command the people to purify themselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Hidden among you, O Israel, are things set apart for the Lord. You will never defeat your enemies unless you remove these things from among you. In the morning you must present yourself by tribes, and the Lord will point out the tribe to which the guilty man belongs. That tribe must come forward with its clans, and the Lord will point out the guilty clan. That clan will then come forward, and the Lord will point out the guilty family. Finally, each member of the guilty family must come forward one by one. The one who has stolen what is set apart for destruction will himself be burned with fire, along with everything he has, for he has broken the covenant of the Lord and has done a horrible thing in Israel." So as Joshua is sitting there with the elders, praying and mourning on his face, thinking that the world is going to end, the Lord points out something. It's like, hey, you guys realize that you've sinned. Hey, you guys realize that you have broken my covenant. You realize that you haven't followed what I've told you to do. And the thing is, the Lord is using the language of you all. Not just an individual, but because of something that an individual has done, it's impacted and infected the whole entire family completely together. As they move on, we see that Joshua takes these commands seriously, and he goes to every tribe. There's 12 tribes in the nation of Israel at the time. And he solidifies it down to this one tribe and this one clan, which was a group of families in a town and a tribe. And he goes to this one family, and from that one family, he even points it down to one person. So Joshua 7:19 through 21. Then Joshua said to Achan, "My son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, by telling the truth. Make your confession and tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me." Achan replied, "It's true. I've sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. Among the plunder, I saw a beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 silver coins, a bar of gold weighing more than a pound. I wanted them so much. That I took them. They are hidden in the ground beneath my tent, with the silver buried deeper than the rest." So now we know who did. Now we know that Achan is the guilty person. He not only took some of the things set apart for destruction, the Babylonian robe, but he also takes the silver and the gold. He takes those things, and as he takes those things, he hides them and puts them away because he knows he's not supposed to have them. But in that moment, he even confesses, like as he's sitting there seeing this gold and this silver, he had this greed for them. He wanted it. He thought that if he had this thing, it was going to satisfy that deep longing of his heart. And he took it, and he took it back, and he hid it, and he had to walk around with that guilt. Now Joshua goes to him because the Lord has pointed him out and says, "My son, give glory to the Lord." Well, how's he going to give glory to the Lord? By telling the truth, by confessing his sin, by confessing that he has been greedy and has taken these things. And here's the thing. is that a whole nation fails in battle, not because they weren't strong enough, not because they weren't good enough, but because of one person's greed infecting the whole entire community. Friends, when it comes to our greed, we have to realize that our greed not only impacts us, it impacts the people around us. I'll put it this way. You're only as generous as the greediest person in your family. Our church is only as generous as the greediest person in our church. Greed infects and spreads out to all the people around us. That's what we learn from this story. The Lord wasn't just angry with Achan. He was angry with the whole community. Today, we think that the sins that we do are for us and private, and we're to suffer for them. And the reality is that throughout the New Testament and the Old Testament, there's this idea of this communal sin. That as we sin, as members of the body, we infect the rest of the body. Yes, it's an individual thing that Jesus has died for your sins, but he's also died for the sins of the body, the sins of families and communities. He's died for those as well. Greed is an infectious disease that lies to us by telling us that the things that we are chasing after will be enough, and they are not. You will never make enough money to be satisfied in your life. You will never have enough boats or cars. You will never have a nice enough house to be able to fill the hole in your heart that only Jesus can fill. And you can't take any of these things with you. You all know that. But yet we strive after them again and again and again. Greed has consequences. And greed has consequences because when we engage in greed, not only the things that we take, but the things that we withhold from our lives as well, then we rob God's blessings from others and those around us. Greed robs us of God's intended blessing. And greed is something that happens usually on the inside of us, but makes an outward impact like never before. Because when greed robs us from God's intentional blessings, we begin to take away being the hands and feet of Jesus for the people in the areas where we live, work, and play, our neighbors, our friends, our spouses, our kids, the people in our church. We take away God's intended blessing when we're greedy with what we have. This is why Jesus says life is not measured by what you own. Stay away from and run hard from every type of greed. So maybe today you're a person that has been struggling with finding that job, with moving up in your business, or trying to make something in your life work so that you can see that thing, that group of people, or that accomplishment, or that success that you think when you get there, you've made it. It's going to provide. It's going to allow you to be satisfied with what you've done. And greed tells us the lie that those things will satisfy. But the truth is that Jesus is the only one that can satisfy us. To our very dying breaths, he is the only one that is able to satisfy us. That's what Ecclesiastes 5:10-11 says. Those who love money will never have enough. The more you love money, the more broken you're going to be. You will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. The more you have, the more people will come and help you spend it, right? I know that's true for me. The more kids you have, the more they will help you spend money that you don't have anyway. So, what good is wealth except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers, right? More money, more problems is what the writer of Ecclesiastes is saying to us. The more that we hold on to it, the more that we will watch it slip through our fingers. So what is the antidote to this? How do we fight greed from infecting our lives? The answer is generosity. And the answer is living in a way where things and money and wealth, or how your 401k is going this week, to stop letting those things be idols and controlling your life. Money is still important. Money is a tool that we can help accomplish some amazing things, right? The church uses money. Secular places use money. Your family uses money, and it needs it to be able to live and provide for your family. But when we are chasing after that as the number one commodities in our life, we are going to find failure in our souls. The antidote is generosity. Generosity opens up opportunities for God's blessing. And I'm talking about giving on a Sunday morning, like giving to your faith community. Because I'm convinced, I had somebody tell me when I was 19 years old and when I was like contemplating to start giving as a newer Christian, I had a financial strategist who was like the stewardship head as a church that I grew up in. He said to me, Connor, if you cannot live on 90%, there is no way you will ever be able to live on 100%. Because you will always be spending in just as much as you're taking in. Live off of 90%. Generosity opens up opportunities for God's blessing. And Jesus embodied this generosity fully because he gave the biggest gift to us because of his life, to lay it down for the sake of the world. This is the good news, that by his wounds, we are healed. Because of his generosity on the cross for you and I, we can now live in the way that leads to life. If you look at the lives of the apostles of the New Testament, if they really thought that chasing after worldly success was the main thing that they could accomplish, they would have died in castles and kingdoms. But that's not how they go. How they go is through crucifixion, upside down in some cases, murder. Some were cut in half for the sake of the gospel. And they lived very full lives without having the resources that you and I have that they probably could have never imagined. Stop putting your faith in your resources because it will never lead to being enough. I've gotten caught into the Apple trap. You know what I'm talking about? The Apple trap of they release a new iPhone every single year. And the iPhone came out this week, I think it was like September 9th or something like that. And I just recently upgraded my phone from like a 13 to a 15. So I'm like, this means that I'm even more behind, right? And the thing is, like, they put this presentation in front of you for the iPhone 17, and they have a speaker, you know, talking about it, and they put together these videos, and they want to convince you through these like introductions of these new products that you cannot live without this, that your life will be totally satisfied, and it'll be so much cleaner and prettier if you use our device. And I've fallen into that trap to be like, man, maybe I need to get the iPhone 17. And the reality is, every time I bought a new phone, I'm like, oh, this does pretty much the same thing the last one did, except it has a better camera for pictures. Like you cannot live your life on this idea that somebody is going to promise you something that will satisfy other than Jesus Christ. That new iPhone, it won't satisfy. That new car, it's not going to satisfy. That new job, it's not going to satisfy. That new opportunity for you and your family, it's not going to satisfy. It might be a good thing, but it's not going to be something that you can put all your hope into. We must put our hope in Jesus. And generosity opens up opportunities for God's blessing, and it helps us fight against greed. So as we pray this